If a bat dies in the cemetery and there's no one around, does he still make a sound? Here's your look at the McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse Hush. Young Tommy Elliot was a childhood friend of Wayne, who also grew up in wealth and privilege. However, Tommy soon became deeply jealous and resented Bruce once his parents were tragically killed. Seeing Bruce as getting the independence and wealth Tommy so desperately desired, eventually becoming a surgeon, Tommy's resentment for Bruce continued to fester and grow over the years. When Riddler discovered that Bruce is really Batman, he approached Dr. Elliot with the secret. But when the two realized that they shared a hatred for Wayne, they joined forces. Wrapping his face in bandages to hide his identity, Elliot manipulated many of Batman's greatest supervillains in a grand conspiracy to defeat him, hence his chosen identity of Hush. First, before we begin, we're going to figure out how tall Hush stands. Why is my tape measure rattling? Either way, though, we're going to measure off to the very top of Hush's head. The figure stands, in this case, 6.5 inches in height, or the figure is going to be roughly 16.5 centimeters tall. If you weren't already in the know, this is the same Hush that we got packaged already that came included with Batman. Although it's not just a case where they've changed out the head sculpt, and notably I also want to point out the fact that the one that came included with Batman has what seems like a smaller head than the one that's sold separately. Not only is the gloves a different color too, but you may also notice the one that get packaged along with the Batman in that 2-pack seems also taller. I'm not even sure why that's the case. Speaking of the Batman, though, let's bring in also the Batman from the Hush 2-pack. Nice-looking Batman. He has some difficult time standing, unfortunately, just due to the way his ankles are designed. And unfortunately, I had the factory error, the one that had the all-plastic forearms. I'm still trying to track one down, a corrected one with the properly painted gloves. Heads and heights aren't the only thing that gets changed here for Hush, as the figure also comes included with a different card altogether. This card actually has a much longer picture of Hush the figure, whereas the one that came included with Batman has only just his torso up. You can also see as well, following the same suit as the actual figure itself, that this one has the mouth closed, or at least showing visible teeth. This one is a screaming Hush. However, though, if you look to the back of them, the read-ups and real names are exactly the same. Although what was interesting, though, is the one that has the screaming face was Dr. Thomas Tommy Elliot, whereas the one that we're looking at here in this case is actually only Dr. Thomas Elliot. I guess he thought Tommy was too ridiculous. But the read-ups are exactly the same to one another. They are, in fact, also the same ones I read in both of the reviews, this one and the other one that we looked at in an earlier video. The figure also comes, of course, yes, included with the display stand, with the DC logo brandished down below, one singular peg that can attach to the underside of Hush's feet. Would recommend it, as this figure does have a little more of a tougher time to stand. We're going to talk more about that in a moment. The figure also comes included with a pair of blades. Now, the blades themselves are unique to this figure, as the one that came included with Batman came included with a shovel. It's entirely up to you which one you would like to display. The neat thing that also came included with the Batman 2-pack was comes included with a Jason Todd cemetery set. Let me just move it to the front so you guys can see it. We've already looked at this, obviously, in an earlier review. But that's also one of the things that benefited that 2-pack Hush, in the sense that he did come included with the shovel, and he came included with that diorama display base. I'm going to move that off to the side. In this case, though, it looks like the blades are identical to one another. They're using more of a shinier silver plastic. The blades are pretty soft, but not too soft that they were warped, taking them out of their plastic tray. The handles are also appearing to be the exact same, and you can easily take them. And I noticed one thing about this Hush is that the plastic that he used for his hands are very soft. Very soft, so easily enough that I can actually get the blade easily into his hand. We're going to do the exact same thing on the other side as well. Now, there is no other place on Hush that you can actually store the blades, so it's either in his hands or you're just out of luck. You're going to have to find some other place to put them. But I would be more inclined, I feel, to display Hush really with the blades in his hand, because it does certainly look good. And then, of course, the other Hush, I can simply just display with the shovel. Speaking of the other Hush, were we speaking of the other Hush? Yes, we were. Yes, we were. Going to just straighten out the arms right now, getting a closer look first at the head sculpt on this one. Now for me, I like this head a lot more. This one doesn't have the screaming face, for example. The bandages seem also a little bit more elaborate. Why I say that is I'm going to slide this one over and bring back in the screaming Hush. Not only was, I feel like the bandages a little, well, the neat thing about this one is the fact that the bandages sort of crisscross applesauce, whereas this one actually just has more of the bandages kind of going across like this, more like mummified bandages. While this one is more of a matte gray, this one actually does get a more darker wash. I personally, again, like this one. I wasn't as big of a fan of the screaming face for Hush, but, you know, to look at them, doesn't it not look like that this one does have a slightly smaller head than this one right here? It also has more of a squared off head, whereas this one is very much more noticeably rounder. Again, entirely up to you which one you would like to go with. Jackets are the same. He does have also the same green ring necklace underneath, and again, he still has that turtleneck shirt, so everything still stays the same between the two figures. Other things obviously mentioned already is the fact that these ones do have different gloves. Now this one, the gloves seem to be the same mold, so nothing has changed at least in that department. But this one does have purple, very close to what Joker would be wearing, and this one has brown gloves. Like, you know, I kind of actually like the brown gloves. I might end up finding myself actually yanking the head off this one and moving it over here. Now you could say to yourself, well, couldn't you just simply remove the hands? Wouldn't that be the easier route to go instead of trying to yank a head off? Well, the other thing I also wanted to mention too, as well, that, yeah, the jackets are the same to one another. The sculpting is the same. And even the coloring, that mustard yellow that they used is also identical. Both the front and the back. You'll notice that they're identical. If anything, I would probably say, if anything, the screaming Hush has a slightly more yellowish mustard. It's not more the dark, spicier mustard that we get here with the singular card release. But I did want to also put these back to back to show you guys. Yeah, it's not my eyes playing tricks on me. This Hush is a lot taller than this Hush right here, which is really strange because you think that they would have used the same mold. It's not even a case where you could say, well, the legs are too far apart on this one, and that's why he looks like he's a little bit shorter. Because if you look at where the shoulders line up, the shoulders on this one are higher than this one here. I would imagine I would chalk most of that up to the way they've actually done the legs, but the legs seem identical. I mean, there's nothing that's changed between the two. I can't pinpoint why exactly. I mean, again, like the legs aren't too far apart from one another. It does look like, yeah, the single card release is slightly shorter. Other than that, though, like I said, that's probably one of the reasons why I might lean to the idea of popping this head off and replacing over here so I have a slightly taller Hush. I don't know how much I'm going to be committing to that idea, but I'm just throwing it out there just to randomly throw that out there into a review. But yeah, I don't know why. I don't know why that one body is quite, yeah, very obviously taller than the other. Just to move that one out of the way. Again, to get a closer look at the face, I myself, again, like the more face with the teeth only just showing and not screaming. Again, just to move the collar back just out of the way so you guys can see. Sculpt, to its credit, is nicely handled here. You can still see he does have the furrowed brow, and they've nicely done a good job of actually outlining the white eyes. The mouth is actually, for as small as this is, a pretty detailed looking mouth too. Again, really like this head sculpt a lot more. This was really the head on Hush that I wanted to get when we got the one package along with Batman. But at least we get the opportunity now with a singular release of this guy to kind of, if you didn't like the one as much screaming like myself, you get this one as well. I mean, I would still be probably suggesting to pick the both up because the other one did come include with Batman after all. That's the only way we've got right now, a Hush Batman. And it did come with a pretty interesting looking cemetery scene as well. For the articulation on this guy, it's going to be the exact same as the one we looked at before because he does have, by the way, a softer plastic collar. It doesn't mean you're going to have any issues whatsoever when it comes to rotating his head. In fact, yes, you can rotate it easily around, all the way around. You can have the head looking down, and you can have the head looking up. Now, it seems like also what they've done here, too, is not only have they added a ball joint here at the top where the neck attaches to the head, but it seems as well that they've actually added a secondary ball joint at the base of the neck, just below the turtleneck. And again, you can rock it back and forth. I've heard several people say that they would like to pick up this figure and turn it into a Darkman custom. I could definitely see that. That'd be very much a good starting point, a good body to work with to build yourself a very own Darkman. I might even do this to pick up another one of these and try to do that myself. For the arms, they do rotate all the way around. There's nothing limited at all, even though really, like, this is all soft plastic. What's rather funny, though, is when you can squeeze right here, you can kind of feel there's very little in the way of a torso. Like his stomach seems only about that wide, and his torso sits above that. So they're probably using a very thin framed body underneath it. It would involve me having to peel this away, but being the fact that this is already sculpted together, I would only just rip the jacket, and that would be very sad afterwards. So I'm not going to do that. I'm sorry. He does have a swivel in his bicep. The figure does have also a double hinge on his elbow, and the figure also does have a swivel in his hands. You know, again, I think I like the brown gloves a little bit more than the purple gloves, just my own personal opinion. But I could easily, I'm sure, Frankenstein the parts that I want to bring over and get a definitive Hush for my collection. Upper torso is on a ball joint. I mean, not that you really would be able to bend it and leave it like that. Obviously, just because it's encased in softer plastic like this, you're really not going to be able to pose it and leave it. I guess you could a little bit, but not really a lot, though. The legs, by the way, if I can actually get underneath the trench coat, do swivel back and forth. There's a ball joint, at least lower end as well. The legs do split out, but unfortunately, just by the limitations of the fact that they've got the trench coat over top of it, you can still do a fair wide splits. Not that you really would be displaying Hush necessarily doing a splits like this. You can also take the legs and move them forward and back. And if I can actually get in there, just to show you as well, the figure does have a swivel at the top of the thigh, a double hinge on the knee. And like with all the cases we've looked at before, the figure does have not only an ankle rocker this way, but you can also rock the ankle this way as well with toe articulation. One last thing I'll also leave you guys with before I send you on your way is the way they've actually got the shin guard. I may have even mentioned this at the time we looked at the other Hush, but because the shin guard sits so low down to the peg, you can't really bring the feet. You don't really have a lot to work with when it comes to wiggle space for that ankle. And I find a lot of times with at least the calf guard that he's wearing, it seems to almost want to push the figure forward. Of course, right now it's not doing it at all. Like I said, I would probably still use a display stand when it comes to displaying this figure. And why did I free up a little bit of space? Well, again, just to bring in the other one here. Entirely opinion-based as to which one you would rather pick up and add to your collection. I lean more to the idea always of picking up both of them because, of course, they're going to bring something a little bit different. If this was simply just a case where it was the exact same Hush, I would have no ankling interest to actually lean to the idea of picking up a singular version of Hush because I already would have had the same figure packaged along with Batman. Because the head sculpt is different, because I feel like also the head that we get with the single release is superior than the 2-pack Hush. And because also, like, this Hush does come with a couple of different weapons that the other Hush didn't come included with either. I think is more the reason to want to pick the figure up. Still, though, I don't know why. I just don't know why. The figure is taller than the other, but that's certainly not something that, first of all, is going to be a deal breaker for me. And second of all, if I do decide down the road I want to have a slightly taller Hush, I can always go the route of just popping the head off this one and Frankensteining it over to this Hush to give me a slightly taller figure for my collection. Sure, the other Hush may have benefited from being too packed along with the Hush Batman, as problems that I may have had with that Batman not having properly painted forearms. He at least did get that Batman, and that's the only time we've gotten so far of the Hush Batman. And he also got, to his credit, a pretty decent diorama scene if you want to use the cemetery as a backdrop. This, though, I feel to be the superior of the two Hush, and even though I'm happy to have now two Hushes in my collection, this is really what I consider to be more the definitive-looking Hush. It has, first of all, I think, a better-looking head sculpt. Although, you know, looking at the one that is having the screaming face, the one thing it has going for it is the way they've actually sculpted the bandages, that they're not all sort of going in the same direction, that they're kind of crisscrossing across his face. This one is very much more like mummified bandages wrapped around, but I do like the wash that they've added on this one a little bit more, and I actually like just having the teeth being visible without him screaming all the time. Expressions are fine and good for some of the cases of figures on displays, but when it comes to a character like Hush, I don't always want the character to be yelling. What is he yelling at? He's yelling at Batman, but does he always have to be yelling? This one at least benefits from just having angry Hush without him actually yelling. This one also does have the blades, which the other Hush didn't come included with. And even though I can overlook the idea that this one is smaller, it's strange the fact that the bodies should be the same. The jackets are the same. The arms are the same, and yet this one is still shorter than the other one we got packaged before. Again, it's a mystery that I'm sure never is going to get solved. But again, if I had the choice, and let's just say I had, for the purpose of this example, I only had the available budget to buy one of them, and let's just say the other one didn't come included with Batman. We're going to have to kind of take this at a level playing field. If the choices were made to only have a single Hush in front of me, packaged the way that they were with the figures that we looked at in this review, I would lean more to the direction of getting this one. If you have the budget, though, I would definitely get both of them because, again, the other one does have Batman. It does have the diorama. It doesn't have as good of a hush, but it has all those other things going for it as well that I would still, at the end of the day, recommend getting both of them. Again, space and budget permitting. Obviously, let me know down below in the comments section if, first of all, you've managed to pick up either one of these hushes, or maybe you have both of them. Or in that case, if you have both of them, which one do you like more and which one do you prefer more? The screaming face hush, why is he always yelling, or the hush that we looked at in this review? Let me know down below in the comments section. And again, if you enjoyed this video, hit it with a like. If you're loving the content and certainly want to stick around for more, then first of all, make sure you hit the subscribe button down below. Second of all, make sure you're turning on the bell notification. And third of all, making sure that you're coming back regularly, because Monday to Friday, 2 times a day, we're always posting new content. I know it seems at times that we're always posting way too much stuff coming up onto this channel, but the problem is there's so many cool stuff, so many cool things coming out. I want to make sure that I'm covering enough of it here on this channel. And that's again why there's so many videos coming here on a regular basis with so many more to follow. And as always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.